my name is Quilliam and welcome back to my channel. This is another tutorial video I'm doing, this time on how structure could affect your playing. So this video is for ukulele players who perhaps have gotten the basics of playing, whether that's songs where you're strumming and singing, or sort of more picky things as well, and you're thinking, okay, I've got the basic chords and the basic harmony, perhaps you've got the words or your picking pattern's great, but what can I do now to go the extra step? Well, in this video I'm going to toy with the idea that one way you could make your playing better is by paying attention to the structure of a piece. Ways you might have encountered sections are generally verses and choruses in songs. This is actually quite a really common structure, the verse-chorus structure. There's no actual set way. You don't have to have a verse and then a chorus and then a verse, and if you do it any other way you are wrong. That's not how it works at all. You could start with a chorus or a verse, introduction, any kind of thing, but a verse-chorus structure is just a sort of loose term to mean that it's a song with a repeating refrain, that's a chorus, where the lyrics and melody are the same each time it's repeated. You'll have a verse which is repeated almost as often as the chorus, except the melody is different and the words in each verse are different from each other. Sometimes you'll have a little bridge, which is a completely new section of music that just introduces some variety, otherwise known as a middle eight because they're normally 8 bars long. They tend to go towards around the 2/3 of the piece, just to bring something new and something else other than a verse or a chorus. And they contain other little sections as well, like intros, riffs, links and outros, that kind of thing. Now, that kind of structure is really useful, especially with the commercial idea of pop music, but it's also great for sort of folk music as well. See, a chorus is a bit that repeats so much that it gets stuck in your head. I mean, with commercial music, you want the song to be stuck in your head. You want it to be catchy because then it will sell again and it will get played again, and that's how the artists make their money. With folk tunes, where you're sort of playing and sitting round a fire and you're all singing along, you need a chorus where everyone can join in and then the soloist can take the verses. So that idea of a repeating refrain is really important for memorability, which is why you often get repeating sections in pieces. But you also get less repeated sections that contain some variety and variations to help break up the piece as well. Now, the reason that you should pay attention to that structure is because you need to know how the audience is going to respond, and it might also give you some ideas of how to play them differently. So if you're expecting people to sing along in the chorus, you might need to raise the volume of your playing in order for you to make yourself be heard. For example, you'll play the verses, which people might not necessarily know the words to, at a quieter volume, but then you increase the dynamic so that you can encourage people to sing along. Not only do you want to make yourself heard when you're singing and trying to lead when you've got a big audience singing along with you, but you also want to really encourage people to sing along by being loud. There's a sort of herd mentality, if you like, where if everyone else is loud, then oh, I should be loud too. And you sort of encourage the party to really get going. So that's something you can do with your choruses. And it is nice to contrast that with a verse as well. Generally, sections in music are split up and they are defined by their changes in melody and harmony. So you might have a verse that's C, G, A minor, F, then your chorus might be C, F, D minor, G, and then of course because the chords change, the melody changes with it. However, there's a lot more to contrasting sections than just changes of melody and harmony. You might want to consider the dynamics or the feel, the affection, the tone, the way you play the instrument. Because the reason you have different sections, as well as the reasons I've mentioned already, is to create differences in mood. So for example, you might have a piece that has a lighter or happier chorus, but a sadder verse. And you can reflect that by playing the sadder verses softly. To play softly, you play roughly around the 12th fret, perhaps even with the thumb, and quite quiet as well. You can even stagger your strums so that you're not just doing a single strum. You can sort of play halfway between an arpeggio and a strum. So it sounds like this. On the other hand, if you're trying to be energetic and happy, or passionate, something like that, try playing closer to the bridge. You could even play sol pont, something like that, and put some more energy into the strum. You can really create contrasting sections by just changing the way you strum in terms of both positioning this way and also how you play this way, so quiet or loud, soft or harsh as well. If you're more inclined to play sort of more classical music, which tends to go away from the verse-chorus structure and has more sort of traditional structures, this same technique applies. Some examples of classical structure include binary form, which is otherwise known as A-B. In other words, you have an A section and then a B section. Ternary form is another popular variety of this type, except you return to the A section afterwards. However, when you repeat the A section, sometimes the A is not a direct repeat, and so you'll see this little symbol above the A in order to represent that it's kind of A, but it's slightly tweaked, slightly different for the second time around. Composers often put two contrasting ideas together, the A section and the B section. Both sections are generally in different keys, which is a bit more of a step than the verse-chorus idea. You could think of, in a song, a verse as A and a chorus as B, but generally in songs you stay in one key throughout. But with AB and ABA, that kind of thing, the sections tend to be in different keys. Now the further back in time you go, generally these keys are quite related. For example, in the key of C for your A section, you might then go to the key of G, or A minor, or F. But later on, as you get more modern in time, you get some keys that are more distantly related, like you might go from C minor to C major, or you might modulate by a tritone or something like that. Nevertheless, the two sections are in different keys, which helps make each section stand apart. There's no point in having two sections if you're not going to make sure they're obviously different. Generally, the tone and the feeling of the sections is quite different. It's quite common to have one section in a major key and another in a minor key. Just listen to Chopin's Raindrop Prelude, which is in ternary form, where it's A, B, A1. So, and then try and spot where the sections change, and you'll notice a difference in tonality, which is basically the key you're in, and also the melody will be quite different as well, similar to like a verse and a chorus. It's such a beautiful piece. I do recommend you checking it out. There are some more structures that I'll just quickly touch upon. There's a really famous one called the Sonata Form, which is a bit more complicated, so I won't go too much into detail, but it's basically an expanded ternary form, where each section has subsections. So if you break down the ABA, in the first A, which is called the exposition, you expose your musical ideas, your melodies, and you'll often have 2 or 3 motifs that appear in the exposition. Then in the B section, which is the development, you take those melodies and you develop them. You play them in different keys, upside down, inside out, all kinds of cool things. And then in the recapitulation, you recap everything that was exposed in the exposition, but you have less modulation, so everything is a bit calmer. That's a very brief look at sonata form. I might do a separate video on it on the future. Alternatively, you can have songs that are through composed or strophic form. This is the kind of idea where you compose a song where it's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You have lots of sections, but no, there's no repeating, everything's quite different. Or you might just have one long section. There are some songs that are just one chord throughout the whole thing, and it's just kind of one big section as well. With those kinds of forms, you've really got to think about when you're playing how to maintain interest. Either you've got so many different sections and you've got to think how to make each one different, or you've got one big section and then in that case you need to maintain interest without sort of breaking down the larger format. Generally you can kind of play around with the dynamics a bit, and if there's lots of repetition, play each repetition slightly differently, louder, quieter, faster, slower, that kind of thing. Or if you've got lots of different sections, maybe have a gradual change that goes between them, so you don't necessarily know that you're changing until you've gotten to the end and you think, oh well, this piece started really differently. My final word on structure is to just briefly cover sort of jazz structure as well. In jazz, normally you have like a little 32 bar or 16 bar melody that is sung once or played once, and then you'll have soloists who improvise around it. So you have this repeating section where the chords stay the same, but people are improvising different melodies above the chords. That's a generic jazz structure, where you have a head, which is the main melody, and then the choruses, which is where people solo or accompany. This is really common for jams and things, and it does extend into rock and roll and that kind of things as well. Stuff like the 12-bar blues, where you have a short, self-contained section that is repeated round and round. So it's like a sort of A, if you like. But then each time it goes round, someone different plays a solo or plays the main melody. Having a really simple and basic groundwork is a great way to sort of not only limit yourself, but also have clear boundaries for when you're soloing. And sometimes limits can actually push your creativity and create new things that you might have never thought to do. Therefore, if you're looking to compose a piece that you can jam to, I would recommend composing a piece, or indeed if you're choosing a piece to play that you want to jam to, I'd recommend choosing a piece that has lots of repeated chord progressions, but it's the same section, so something like a rock and roll piece or a piece of jazz. Alternatively, if you're looking to take your listeners on a journey, then play a more complicated classical structure. You can either compose this by putting two or multiple ideas together, contrasting ideas together, and take them on a journey through time and music. Or if you're looking to play just a song with choruses and verses, that's great too. But just make sure that you make all the different sections contrast, but yet still make sure that they sound like the same piece. Of course, if you want to play songs, that's great too. The structures are sort of more set in stone with songs in the fact that the lyrics tell the story. A lot of, with these classical pieces, you can mix and match the melodies because there's no words, so the notes are free to be played around with. But with songs, the structure of each song is kind of more set in stone because the lyrics have to tell the story. Nevertheless, you can probably still play around with the tone and the affection of these sections and create something really effective and really nice to listen to. So I would encourage you to look at, just take a song as an example, just a simple song or a piece, and look at how you can make the sections subtly different. Subtle but noticeable, I'd say. You don't want to make all the sections too contrasting that it doesn't sound like the same piece anymore, but at the same time you want to make each section stand out on their own as well. I've been Matthew Quilliam. Thank you so much to all my subscribers. I'm nearly at 400. If we can get to 400 before the end of the year, I'd be very grateful. So please share this video around and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Give the video a like and a comment. It really helps me out, and it helps me keep motivated during these gigless times and helps me provide more educational content for you as well. Other things you can find on my channel include learning the cello. I'm a primary ukulele player, but I'm having cello lessons, and I've set myself the challenge of doing a grade 1 cello exam before the end of the year. That should be fun. You can also find performance videos online on this channel as well of me. I'm sort of recording my own stuff at the moment, but there's some archive footage, and when we get out gigging again, of course I'll be posting all sorts of live performance videos on here as well. I also do reviews and things, so there's a lot of content on this channel that you mustn't miss, so make sure you're subscribed to catch it all. Thank you so much for watching. Your support right to the end of the video really does mean a lot to me. So until the next one, take care. Bye.